Hey, welcome to the Recovery 180 podcast. And today we're honored to have Fresh IE, who goes by that as a rapper name, Canadian rapper and home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers,
Yes, sir.
and a whole lot more. And so, yeah, you're a two-time Grammy-nominated artist, Juno nomination, numerous other Canadian awards. A little bit of background on you behind music. Fresh IE is a speaker, community leader, mentor for at-risk youth, and you spend time helping those with addiction, incarceration, trauma. And on top of that, it's your birthday today.
It's
So
my birthday. Yeah.
we are honored that you would take time to be with us today there, Fresh IE. So yeah, welcome on board.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great thing you're doing. So,
Well, thanks. Thank you. So I just basically when we do these podcasts, I usually just say, start off telling us something about yourself, where you grew up, some of your background growing up and some of your life stories along the way, and we'll start there.
yeah, that sounds good. Well, like I said, my real name is Rob Wilson,
Hmm.
and I grew up in the north end of Winnipeg here, in in a rough part of the city. Um, you know, yeah, I mean, like I came up in the projects here in the north end of Winnipeg. And never had a father in my life. So I grew up with my granny and my aunties and my
Hmm.
mom off and on. And so, I mean, I grew up around a lot of dysfunction and like a lot of young people who grew up, in the rough parts of town. You know,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things you see that you shouldn't see. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I
Hmm.
grew up in that atmosphere. Not to say that there was a lot of love around me with my grandmother and the wonderful women that were in my life as a child. But growing up without a father was really tough for me. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I seen a lot of things, early in life. And growing up in the hood, you see a lot of things like addiction and gangs and all
Hmm.
those things that come with growing up in a broken home.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so most of my life was like that as a young person.
Hmm.
Um, and but like for me, that's all I knew. So I didn't know that was what was wrong or right at that time, obviously being young. So growing up that fast, as a young in the atmosphere. By the time I got a teenager, I got into a lot of bad things as a young person.
Hmm.
Um, running with the wrong people and growing up looking up to drug dealers and looking up to the ones who like to me, my example of my hero was the pimp who pulled up in the Lincoln or in the Cadillac and that's what I thought was cool because I didn't have an uncle who had a construction company or
Hmm. Hmm.
who was a pastor. It was like, oh, I want to be like Uncle so and so.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So that's what I mimicked. And by the time I, got 15, 16, I began to live up what I was mimicking, as a child. And,
Hmm.
and all the while, um, I was always into music as a kid too. Like, if from the pain of not seeing my mother a lot, I would always go out into the projects and dance on cardboard. And, it was in the early 80s. So, I mean, I'll go into the projects with my cardboard and
Hmm.
put my radio down and dance and the whole projects were watching me. So I was always entertaining in some kind of sort.
How
And
did you get the music start? Did somebody get you into music initially, or how did
I,
that
I,
happen?
I remember the first time that I saw Michael Jackson on the Grammys in '84,
Hmm.
that year when Thriller came out. It just did something to me,
Hmm.
so I was like die hard I wanted to be like Michael Jackson back
Right.
when I was
Right.
a kid, like
Yeah.
a lot of kids did back then.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I had my glove that I made at school would put glue on it, dipped it in glitter, and try to, you know what I mean? I would put Vaseline in my hair, try to get the.
You
I
probably
was,
did the moonwalk too, right?
oh, I did all that. I was
Yeah.
doing it all. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And to a degree where I was getting really good at it too. So
Right.
I remember one time someone saw me dancing outside and they were hosting a dance competition at Winnipeg Beach,
Hmm.
and the winner would get on. They had a Canadian version of, you remember what was the talent competition on TV then? Um
The Canadian Idol or something like that, or
no, but it was the American one with Ed McMahon.
oh, okay, yeah,
What was that one called again?
yeah. I don't remember either, but I remember it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but so anyways, there was a Canadian version of that. So the winner, if you won, you got to go on that show.
And
And
you were how old at that point?
I was probably 11, maybe 12, maybe
Wow,
11,
wow.
maybe younger, maybe even 9, something around that area. I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going, and my auntie took me to the Winnipeg Beach. They had this big competition for talent, and I actually won the whole thing.
Oh, really? Right
And
on.
ended up on this TV show and dancing and stuff. So I was always dancing. So music was always my refuge to take me away from, the pains of not having the proper, parents in my life,
Mm. So
so,
you were a 9-year old, probably living kind of a life of a 20-year old almost, were you?
yeah, 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, without going into a lot of detail about, the things I encountered, you give me, I've passed that now in my life, and
Hmm.
I do share a lot of things in my music, but me and my mother have built a new relationship, and so I mean, all those pains of blaming and all that stuff is done in my life now, but
Hmm.
you know, uh, there was a time where I was very angry at the world because of the way I grew up. So I
Hmm.
went out. By the time I got 16, 17, I began to get involved in pimping and dealing drugs, and just thinking I'm doing, you know, I wanted people to feel my pain all the time,
Hmm.
and and I didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, when I look back now, I could see God like reaching out to me. Even then, I remember there was times as a kid, when things were happening to my mom, and I used to pick up this book, and I used to have this machete in my room to
Hmm.
protect me and my sister. And I didn't know what the book was, and I didn't understand, but all I knew was that when I put this book up, it would make me feel better.
Hmm.
I would read it and sit there, and it would stop me from crying, and and then when I look back now, it was the Bible that I was reading,
Hmm.
but I didn't, no one told me about God at that time. I
Hmm.
didn't know anything about that. I just had this Bible my granny gave me, and I would read it, and it would make me feel better.
Hmm. Hmm. So
And
was your grandmother, like, was she a praying, one of those praying grandmothers?
yeah, my grandmother was a praying grandmother, and
Hmm.
she went through a lot of stuff in her life,
Hmm.
and it was just a generational thing. There was a lot of the men didn't do what they were supposed to do
Right, right.
throughout the generations, and so it's the whole generational iniquity thing that visited the children and the children's children kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I mean that was my life growing up, was music, and then the mayhem, and
So what
you know
about school? Where was school and all that? Were you attending school regularly or?
my aunties and my granny made sure that I was going to school for the most
Hmm.
part, but it was tough, when I got 12, 13 into junior high, into junior high and high school. I went to St. John's. Um, I became violent, where I ended up slapping my teacher, and then I got kicked out of almost every high school I was in till I went to RB Russell. That was the last straw for me.
Hmm.
And then the RB Russell, that was when I really started to just grab a hold of the street life.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then I ended up going out to Vancouver, and I just went full tilt, right into the street, right into the life that I've seen, that was around me my whole life,
Hmm.
and begin to make all these bad choices.
So
So yeah,
the music was part of your life though all the way along, like to
100%.
some
Yeah.
degree. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so was it a little bit of a therapy, do you think, to some degree? It kind of got your mind off of the street a bit?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I always had these little glimpses of my purpose. I just didn't understand what purpose was, or and so until I have my epiphany, which I'll get to. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I had all these little glimpses, or little reminders that God had a plan this whole time.
Hmm.
And so, but sometimes we got to find a purpose for our pain. Like the pain is necessary. Some
Hmm.
of the greatest worship is birthed out of suffering. So yeah.
So all through high school, then you struggled. Do you finish high school then before you went to Vancouver?
No, I didn't finish high school.
Oh,
No,
okay. Okay.
I ended up going to Vancouver, and I quit school, and I just got into the street life. I
Hmm.
got into the hustling, and you know, uh, um, just got caught up into the life. Right from then. I was like 17 out there, and I was making money, lots of money every night, hustling, and you
Hmm.
know, doing what I had to do. And yeah, I was living that life right from 17 to like into my early 20s.
Hmm.
I was out.
Was there moments in all of that, in the middle of all that, where you just had a feeling that maybe I should be going in a different direction? Did you recall if that ever crossed your mind? Did you have nights where you just thought, why am I doing this? You know?
Towards the end, before my epiphany,
Hmm.
um, before the moment when I encountered Christ,
Yeah.
there were moments where, I was, in the vehicle with some people and about to do some things, and I can hear God's voice telling me to get out the vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and me questioning, what am I doing? Like, it's saying me, I can't do this no more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember one time when I was in Toronto with a girl I was with at the time, and we were at this party, and we witnessed a man get murdered right next to us.
Hmm.
It was we were at this wedding social, and I guess it was like a jealous ex who came in and shot the groom and murdered
Hmm.
him right there,
Oh, well.
and it was just like, I'm like, I just felt like I was just running my whole life, and at that, I remember I couldn't talk for 2 days after that. I was just speechless,
Hmm.
and I was already at that time pursuing, like I was beginning to talk to God in my own way, just ask questions, and knowing that I want something different in my life. I just didn't
Hmm.
know how to do it. I didn't understand how to be transformed, or so.
And your grandma was praying up a storm for you, I'm sure. So that was the anchor behind you.
Yeah, my granny,
Yeah.
every time I'd visit her, she would tell me weird stuff. At that time, it was weird to me.
Yeah.
Things that I did, like, for example, when I was like, maybe, I don't know how old I was. I must have been like 19 or something. And I went to visit her one time in Vancouver in her apartment, and we were watching, because every time I go, she would teach me. She put like like Black history on, or
Hmm.
she'd open up some history and teach me about my history, and you know what I mean? Like, she
Hmm.
was that kind of granny. She would sit me down and
Hmm.
talk to me, or put on Roots,
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that, or watch PBS,
Yeah.
and
So
and
were you respectable? Like you were respectable towards that? Like
oh,
you were
100%.
absorbing that? Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, like, out of like my granny, she was my granny was everything to me.
Hmm.
Like, she ended up raising me and my sister, and like we lived with her most of our lives when we were young,
Mm.
for, for a while there. So,
So how long did this Vancouver lifestyle then go on
mm,
before
I
you
would
went
I
back to
would
Winnipeg? Or
I would say from 17 to, I would say about 4 or 5 years I was out there, and and,
mm-hmm.
uh, and just leaving a trail of just of disaster behind me, and like
Hmm.
everywhere I went, it was just.
So did you end up in jail in that process, or how
I
did?
went, I went to jail a few times,
Hmm.
and just really had no respect for women, because of what my mom went through.
Hmm.
And I had no respect for nobody really, because the way I saw men treat women, I that was my foundation at that time. I was like, this
Hmm.
is this is how it's supposed to be,
Hmm.
you know.
So kind of where did things start to change for you then? Where was
When
your
I
kind of
when
your
I
turning
when I
point?
act- when I went to Toronto from Vancouver, when I went to when I witnessed that murder out there, I ended up coming. My mom at that time lived in Kenora here in Winnipeg,
Hmm.
and well, Kenora is only 2 hours from
Yep.
Winnipeg,
Yep.
she ended up moving to Kenora and getting married out there, and she changed her life, And so when I witnessed that murder, I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I need to get away from here." She's like, "Well, just come visit me for a little bit." So I went out to Kenora for a little bit, and that's when I ended up coming back to Winnipeg
Hmm.
and back to the North End where I grew up. And I mean, of course, that life is everywhere. So, trouble always finds you and stuff. But now I'm in the North End, and every once in a while, a friend of mine who I grew up with would come and visit, and he would always bring his Bible and try and, you
Hmm.
know, he would tell me stuff while we were drinking, like, fresh, man. God has your number. God is after you, man. He's gonna reveal himself. And I'm like, man, please. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
he would show up every time we're out in the porch, he would end up showing up on his bike and pulling up and with his Bible. I'm like, come on, man.
So was that perking a little bit of interest in you? Like
Well,
even,
yeah, I had a lot of respect for him because
yeah.
I looked up to him. Actually, he was the one who actually taught me how to formulate rhymes and memorize and stuff like that. Yet
Oh,
when I
right
was
on.
younger, so he was one of the guys that first, really helped me
Hmm.
turn from a dancer to a rapper.
Right. Right.
So I had a lot of respect for him. So I mean, so when he came, it was like, we'd give him our ear, but it would just be like, come on, man, you see us having drinks, man. You know what I mean? So.
Hmm.
But it planted the seed for sure. And
Hmm.
his mother's was married to the pastor of a mission here in Winnipeg that
Hmm.
it's like a kids mission. So it
Hmm.
was like a kids church right in the hood. So every Sunday they would have a kids church and they would do a Sunday school thing and give out bread to the community. And so he was like, well, you should just come by and check out the kids church and just
Hmm.
and when you have some time. I said, all right, I'll pop by.
Hmm.
So I remember one day I was hungover and I went over to this kid's church. It was this couple streets down. And I went and it was just like amazing. These kids were so full of life, I mean, who knows what they're going home to, but here they are in this little building and they're so full of joy.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is pretty cool, man. So I ended up going and helping. I volunteered myself to just to help with the kids.
Hmm.
At that time I was still drinking and stuff. But now I'm like, now that seed's planted.
Hmm.
And so now I'm like, learning all the stuff about God just through watching these kids learning about God. And then eventually Greg convinced me, he's like, let's do a couple rhymes for these kids. So here we are in this kids church. And now he got me writing these raps about Jesus. And I mean, I really don't know much, but I know enough, at that time, I already knew I
Hmm.
was I was wanting something better. I just didn't know how to get it,
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I dived into it and I started writing these little songs for these kids. And me and Greg would rap and we put choir robes on the kids and we would write these little choruses for the kids
Mm.
and the kids would sing the choruses and then we would rap and the kids would cheer and it was like, oh, and
That's
then I'd
fun.
go back home to my chaos still and the
Hmm.
drinking and but now I'm like really gravitating to being around these kids because it was like I had so much joy doing that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next thing you know, we get invited to do this coffee house at this Christian bikers place.
Hmm.
So now we're doing little tiny little shows in these little hole in the wall church places, and then it just starts taking off. And people start inviting us, can you bring those kids and you guys come and do that at this church? And I'm like, wow, I wasn't looking for that. Now
Hmm.
at the same time, I'm still struggling with my addiction with alcohol.
Yeah.
And and I remember the moment that all changed was it was a Saturday night and I was on my way to the liquor store. No, I was on my way back from the liquor store. And I had a 2-4 of beer with me.
Hmm.
Um, and then on my way home, there was this blind man in the middle of the street, and the cars were just going around him. Like no one was stopping, no one was helping him, and he was gonna get hit by a car,
Hmm. Hmm.
So and he had no one guiding him. So I just yelled out to him, I was like, hey man, get off the street. You're gonna get hit by a car. You're gonna die out here. So he turned and he started hearing my voice. And I said, hey man, I don't know where you live or where you're going, but if you keep going towards where you're coming towards my voice, you'll be safe because
Hmm.
you'll end up in the projects. So he come off the street and then he went his way safe and I went home. But then I was just like, it just did something to me. I was like, man, like I don't want to end up like that.
Right.
I
Right.
was I was sitting in my window. I couldn't drink. I was sitting in my window looking out, and I was just thinking, man, thinking about all the women I've hurt, all the things my mom went through. If I died today, it wouldn't even exist. I didn't have a social insurance number. I didn't have a proper identification. I'm addicted to alcohol. Like at that time, I had some charges that were coming up that was gonna, I was gonna end up going to jail for.
Hmm.
And so I was just like, man, I don't even exist, man. Like I was basically feeling sorry for myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
And while I'm sitting there, it was about 30 minutes of just looking in hindsight of my life and just basically you're just doing an audit of my life is what I was
Right.
doing.
Right.
And I see these four people outside my window. So I looked down and I was yelling, oh, I said, what are you guys doing? And I looked, they said they were neighborhood watch. That they walk around giving clean needles and
Hmm.
doing all the stuff. And they said they were just watching a man on my step. So I went downstairs and I opened my door, and there was the same blind man that I
Hmm.
helped blocks down the road, now
Hmm.
sleeping on
Hmm.
the step. So all I could do is I slammed the door, I ran upstairs, and I said, God, is that you?
Hmm.
And I didn't know how to hear God's voice. I didn't know how to respond. I just said, God, is that you? Like, are you trying to give me, how does this blind man who I helped now end up on my step?
Hmm.
So from that moment, for about a week, I start reading the Word. I start talking to God. Every day, I'm just like so troubled by it. Like, what did that mean? I knew there was something about it.
Hmm.
I couldn't drink, and then one Saturday afternoon, I hear God's voice so loud, and He said, "That blind man is you,
Hmm.
walking blind in this life. And if you don't turn away from this life you're living, you're gonna die in these streets."
Hmm.
And when I heard that God's voice for the first time, it was so loud, but yet it wasn't audible. But it was like it was inside of me.
Hmm.
It turned on and I could hear it as if it was there all the time.
Yeah.
And I fell on my futon and I surrendered my life to God.
Right on.
And I said, God, I don't know how to stop doing what I'm doing. I don't know how to stop fighting and drinking and smoking, but I surrender it to you. You do it. I can't do it.
Hmm.
And I gave my heart to God right there.
Hmm.
And like literally, I would say like my all like it was almost like he ripped the rug from me, and I had no desire to do it, even if I wanted to. Like the way I talked, drinking, there was just no desire. It was gone.
Hmm.
Smoking cigarettes, it was just gone. And to a point where for a good month or so, I didn't know what to do with myself because I'm going to this kids mission. I'm
Yeah.
talking different now, and I'm like, it was like this drastic conversion of lifestyle, and it was like I had a brand new heart. My heart just came alive all of a sudden. I would see things different. Like when I see a rose or a flower, it was just like, oh my God, it was just so bright. Like things
Mm-hmm.
just started opening. My eyes were opening.
Total transformation. Yeah.
Transformation and
So what
it
was
was
it like for you then when you went to work with the kids? Like how different was it now that you had a heart for Jesus to be involved at that?
it was full steam. I dove headfirst into it,
Mm,
and and the more that I learned about God's love and about you know having a relationship, I mean they would tell me that for a little while before that moment,
hmm.
but when the light turned on, I really understood now what it meant about difference between religion and relationship.
Hmm.
It was just like, oh, you mean I can really be transformed and walk in the newness of life and have a relationship with God and not just it be going on a Sunday or.
Mm,
reading a book, and it's like it's so much more than that. It's a relationship,
mm,
and
mhm.
I begin to pursue that like as hard as God is pursuing me, you
Yeah. So
know.
how did that start rolling out then? Because we got about 10 minutes roughly, or a little bit less than
Oh,
that. But like, yeah, just
well, I mean, there's so much there, like I said, I didn't know what to do with my hands, so.
mhm,
I remember one day praying, I was like, God, I said, because I mean, when I first got saved, I started going to the youth groups and going to all these, but coming from the streets, it was kind of cheesy. It was like,
yeah.
playing all these games. And I was like, okay, Lord, like, you got to do something with my hands. I don't know
Hmm.
what to do with myself,
Hmm.
And then he
Hmm.
started giving me these dreams. And in these dreams, I would get these sounds and I would wake up. And then one day, my grandmother out of the blue called me and said, Robert, I'm going to send you $1,500 to do something. Because she always knew I was going to do music.
Hmm.
She'd always tell me that. And she sent me $1,500. I went and bought myself a little drum machine. And I started finding those sounds I would get in my dreams. And that's how I made my first
Oh, wow.
song.
Hmm.
Because I didn't know music theory or anything.
Hmm.
It was all just taught through the Lord and just through just from hearing and seeing colors and visions, and I would make music that way. And
Hmm.
that's how I started making music was from that.
Wow.
And then I would say so that was like 98. So 4 years later, I was on the red carpet at the Grammys, getting nominated for a Grammy Award, and then made history, being the first not just Christian but rapper ever in Canada to do that,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
catapulted my testimony all over the world.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I could see that was the reason why God allowed those things to happen. Wasn't because to be some star. It was so that my story would go out and he would see all the people that would get touched by my story that would come to him and be led to the cross through my life.
Give you a platform, kind of a
Yeah,
springboard into
yeah,
more. Yeah. So lots of music, lots of stories, lots of. I'm very interested in what you've been doing in the communities, because you've really
yeah.
been giving back. I mean, music has been huge, and you've been
Hmm.
very successful. But you're doing a whole lot of work with at-risk youth and people in jail. And like, can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some of that?
Yeah, so now we go to all the reserves. Well, I've been to like almost every single reserve in Canada, the Arctic, um, and then a lot of maximum security prisons where we go. And right now we're getting ready to go into Heavenly Prison here in Winnipeg,
Hmm.
uh, and just going in and reminding them that there is a purpose for their life where they are right now.
Hmm.
So um, it's just something that the Lord's put in my heart from day one since I started doing this is the boldness to go in without fear and to go into the dark places and to remind them who they are and that there's a call in their life to come out of the darkness
Hmm.
like there was in my life.
Hmm.
So I got a program called Edify. It's an acronym for Education, Development, Inspiration for Youth, where I teach young people how to write songs, record, mix, master, everything that I do. I teach them it, but it's also a common ground to connect them to God,
Hmm.
in a unique way. A unique way. So I'm doing that on a regular basis, mentoring young men, and
So, so what does that feel like for you today when you look back on your past and where you were? Um, I'm sure that you're moved at times by where God has brought you to.
it's gratifying. I mean, it has its challenges. Sometimes I'm like, my God, why you always send me these misfits?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, doing it over and over again. You know, that's why I'm always reminded. Don't get weary in well doing.
Hmm.
Gotta always remind myself. And remember where I came from because sometimes you just want to rest. You want
Get
to.
tired. Yeah.
Yeah, you get tired and but it's like this there's an urgency. There's it's so much more than just being comfortable and
Hmm.
especially in these times that where we live in the return, the Lord is coming, coming back for his people.
Mm.
and there's an urgency. So there's
Well,
so I'm reminded of that.
well, you definitely know what your passion is. I'm just wondering, like, if you have words that you could share for those that are out there that are maybe watching that maybe didn't have a father figure to grow up with or have been distracted in various ways. Like, what sort of words of advice would you be having for those that are maybe on the street or kind of wandering in circles and not sure what direction to go?
Yeah, I would just encourage you that, you know, even though you feel like, you've come from nothing, you have nothing going, you don't have a purpose for your life,
Hmm.
that there is something great coming down the road. And that all like that's why great things come out of hardship. Like, they say the diamond in the rough, you gotta
Hmm.
dig into the dirt and the process that diamond goes through to even come to life is pressure, and it's grimy and it's tough, but in the end it's beautiful.
Hmm.
So that's my life, and everybody who's feeling that way today, I encourage you, remind you that the wall that's in front of you that you feel is holding you back is not there to hold you back. It's there for you to climb higher, to show you how strong you really are, and to make you better than what you were yesterday.
Oh, great
And
words. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So as we just in the next couple of minutes here, like what are you working on now? You got some new projects, some new music being launched. Just give us a little bit of a background on some of that.
Yeah, I got a new album, and I'm feeling like this is my last album. I'm not gonna stop doing music or traveling or nothing like that, but I've done so many albums. I feel like I have enough content to go until I'm 90. So so I'm doing my next project called Legacy, and just celebrating, the last 25 years of, the things that God's done with me through music, and just bringing some people back that I work with through the years to do one project and bringing them all on there.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I just recently got offered to sign with a record label and to help promote that project. And so we're gonna go really hard on this last project and push it out there and see if we can get a buzz going with it, and really to expand the platform so that we can open the door to allow some of these young guys to walk through it, and
Hmm.
to do to take what I have and use that as a model for them to continue to do it too as well. So
Cool.
we're working on that right now.
So what's your website if people want to follow you and check out what you're doing? What's your
My
website?
website is freshmusic.ca, and yeah, you can find my social media and all that stuff on there as well. All my music's on there, my testimony,
Cool.
my Edify programs on there if you want to register, music videos, everything. So it's all
Yeah.
there. Hmm.
Well, thank you, Fresh IE. I mean, a great story, and I wish we had a lot more time to go
Yeah,
about this. But thanks again, Rob. And I just hope that people will check out your website. We'll throw it up on our in our description on our podcasts and stuff. But thank you for taking time. We look forward to crossing paths. Maybe you'll come out this Vancouver way again and speak out
yeah,
here. Let me know.
oh,
I'd
oh,
love to be there and
yeah,
yeah, and
for
keep going
sure.
with the legacy thing. I think that's an important thing nowadays. So thank you again for being on the Recovery 180 podcast. It's Fresh IE, and that was another episode. And thank you very much, and have a great day in Winnipeg.
You too,
All
Glenn. Be
right.
blessed, man.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah.